Hey y'all, it's Raj with EV365. Today we're taking a look at the Nurzviy EVHome 40 amp wall charger. All right y'all, here it is, the Nurzviy EVHome wall charger. And the one Nurzviy sent us is the NEMA 1450, so it's the 40 amp version. It's got the NEMA 1450 plug that we've got plugged into the NEO charge unit here. It does also come in a NEMA 650 version, that's a plug-in, and also a NEMA or a hardwired version, so that's the 50 amp version. And as you can see just right off the bat, it's got a real kind of clean looking profile and look. It's got this black front, you've got an indicator light that changes based off of what you're doing. When it's in standby, it's in green. When you're charging, it's blue. And if there's some type of error or it trips one of the safety triggers, it'll turn red. And then if it does trip a safety trigger, there's a button here on the right that you can reset the safety. And this light is pretty bright, so if you're gonna mount it outside, and it spins around while you're charging, it's kind of like a signal, like, hey, there's a charger over here. You can dim it using the app. And that's another great thing about this unit. It comes with an app. The connectivity on the app was super easy. You can either connect using Bluetooth, or you can connect using Wi-Fi when you get it all set up. And then you can control everything that the charger does through the app. And what's great is the unit can be controlled by the app, so you can control who's using it. Again, for example, if you've got it mounted outside and you don't want any strangers coming up to your charger and using it. And it's also got 2 RFID cards that you can use to activate the charge. And if you need to order more of these RFID cards, you can from Nurzviy. And these actually already came pre-programmed, so there's really nothing I needed to do. Once I wanted to use them, you just hit them and the charging gets going. And then if you want to set it up in plug and play, you can do that as well. And then it's just like any other charger you plug in, it's ready to go, kind of based off of what you've got set on your vehicle. And you can adjust the amperage that you're pulling, obviously from 40 amps down to wherever you want to go below that. And of course, based off of what your vehicle can charge. So real quick, I've got the manual here. And it of course comes with all the equipment that you need to mount it. And when we test out the cable, I'll show you how easy it is to mount, like all wall chargers. But yeah, kind of the specifics of it. Like I said, this is the 40 amp version. So that'll get you up to 9.6 kilowatts per hour when you're charging. It's got a 24-foot cable, which is a pretty good length. Again, I said NEMA 1450 or 650 if you want a plug-in option. And then there's a hardwire that'll give you 50 amps. And that was one thing I wanted to point out. When we take the cable off, I'll show you that. It mounts real easy, but there's no way to lock it in when you're mounting it. So it's super easy to actually just pull off and run off with it if you want. So if you're gonna mount this outside that maybe has access to public, you may wanna get the hardwired version. So that way it's just a little more secure and somebody can't just walk by, unplug it, pop it off and run off with it. If that's something that's of concern for you. It is IP65 rated, so that means it's dust proof and it's water resistant. It can handle a pretty decent spray. You're not gonna want to submerge it in water or anything like that, but yeah, it'll be able to handle outdoor use. And the connector itself is IP55 rated. So again, it can handle most dust situations and water resistant. It's got the typical negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit to 122 degrees Fahrenheit operating temp. So obviously if you're in extreme heat conditions, maybe get this unit plugged in where it's a little shadier or keep it indoors. It's got a J1772 connector, which you see right here. And it's got a little mount in the front that you can store it that way. And the other great thing about this unit is it did already come with this rubber cap, which is awesome. Just a simple thing, because then if you don't want to store it that way, you can just keep it this way, which is the way we normally keep it. We've got it mounted up here to try it out in our single car garage. So this way the handle, when it's sticking out, when it's stored here, this way it's not in the way, you're not hitting the mirrors or hitting it when you open the doors. And like I said, it's got Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for connectivity. And it also comes with a 2-year warranty, which is great. Now, the one thing I didn't see, it doesn't have an Underwriters Laboratory or an ETL certification, which we do like to see that for stuff here in the States, but it does have several safety features within the unit where it'll trigger and shut off before you get into a dangerous situation. But the safety features, you can obviously control the amperage that you're pulling, you can control the upper and lower end of the voltage that you're pulling. And it's super easy to do in the app and control it. You don't need to do anything on the unit itself to get that stuff set up. So that's great. And another thing in the app that you should be able to do is set up a schedule for charging. The one thing I did notice for now is that it's very specific. You can set up the schedule for a specific day, like to the date. So say February 22nd at this time. You can't set it up to where it does that every day on repeat. And I've talked to Nurzviy about that while we were trying this out. And they've actually already sent in a ticket to their software team to look into that and hopefully get that app updated. So that was good. I did like to see that their team was interested in some feedback and taking that in and making some improvements. And maybe they'll eventually do something about the locking in place for outdoor use as well. So let's take a look at the cable. This is always a big thing I like to test out all units with is how easy is it to manage the cable. And first what we'll do is we'll put the cable on the ground. I just want to show you the pop off I was talking about. You just do that and it comes right off. But that makes it super easy to mount. You've got a wall plate. This plate is just our home plate that we mount all our wall plates on, so we're not putting a bunch of holes in the wall. But you put the wall plate in and you got 3 screws that go in. We just put in 1 for now, so we can easily remove it if we need to. And then to put it on, there's just these 4 holes and there's 4 bolts on the back of the unit, and it literally just pops right in, slides in place. And if you got the 3 screws in there, it's gonna be really secure. Now the cable itself, it's probably your standard NEMA 1450 thickness of cable that I've seen with J1772 chargers. And it's relatively easy to manage and get hung up. And this is one of the biggest things I think makes a make or break for chargers is how easy is it to manage that cable. And I'd say this isn't necessarily the easiest cable in the world to manage, but it's not overly thick to where you're gonna have a bunch of issue hanging it up. Of course, you always, with all cables, you need to take your time. Otherwise, you're gonna just end up leaving the cable laying around and the connector's gonna get run over by your vehicle. So take your time when hanging these things up. But yeah, I would say that cable was decently flexible enough for us to manage. Obviously, once it gets twisted around and stuff like that, like any cable about this thickness, then you're gonna have to work with it a little bit. But okay, so now what I wanted to do was just get into the app a little bit. And what's great is Nurzviy has its own dedicated app. So like I said, I've been working with them while we've been testing this out just to kind of see if there's things they could update. It sounds like they may be willing to do that. And so the app is there so they can manage that in-house. You know, some charging units I've used kind of use a general app that a lot of smart electronics might use, and they may not have that level of influence to get those apps changed right away. And so then once you're in the app, you can see the very first page is the My Home that shows you what Nurzviy equipment that you've got, and it's got our unit on there. It's got the picture of the Nurzviy unit, and again, you can see it's pretty good looking unit, to be honest. And then if you click on that, you can see if you're plugged in, it's got a battery that'll show you the charge levels as you're moving. It shows you when you start charging, how long you've been charging, how much power you've sent to the vehicle, and what the voltage and the current, the amperage that you're pulling. You've got your records, so you can keep a record of the charges that you've had. It's got a warning tab, which will show you any warnings. And this is the emergency stop button over here on the side as well. So if you need to stop your charge for any reason, you can run out and just push that and stop a charge. Of course, you can do that from your app as well, but maybe say it gets disconnected for some reason, you can use that. And you can usually do that from your vehicle also. And then that final tab is the setting tabs. You can name your unit. You can set your unit to whether you want it to be plug and play, where basically you don't need to use the RFID cards, or you don't need to use the app to initiate the charge. You decide if you want to connect it using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. We've got it set up with Wi-Fi. You can adjust your current, and it's got 40 amps, 32 amps, and 16 amps. And then of course, if you get the hardwired version, you're gonna see a 58 or a 48 amp option on there as well. And then here's the light control. So you can see that is really bright. So if you mount that outside, this almost acts like a bat signal that, hey, there's a charger over here, because it's actually spinning when you're charging, and it is really bright. So I'd recommend, this is all the way to the low setting, and let's confirm that. You can see it gets pretty dim. Now, at night you can still see it, but it's not super bright. So if you're close enough and working with it, you can tell what the indicator's telling you. It's green if you're in standby. It's blue when you're charging. Let's set it kind of in the middle and see how that looks. Yeah, and it's red if you've got an error or a trip. But yeah, again, like I said, if you're indoors and you like that bright light, you can keep it bright, but I would say dim it down a little bit, especially if you're leaving it outside, just not to draw attention that you've got charging equipment out there. And then again, if it's outside, you can restrict access to who can use it and who can charge with it using the RFID cards or the app. And one thing I did notice when I plugged it in, and I think it is the LED, there's just like a little bit of a electronic whistle, you know, that you sometimes get when you plug stuff in. It's not anything that I would say is a deal breaker or anything like that, but just something I noticed. And then it's got the schedule charging option. Like I said, right now it's super specific to the date. And so that's something it sounds like Nurzviy's working on. So that's just something to consider. And I honestly right now have not been able to get the schedule charging to stay, like, to hold and actually work for me. So that's something they're gonna try to fix as well. And then it's got the protection settings that I mentioned in that you can control the overcurrent threshold, so you can set the amperage, the over voltage threshold, and the under voltage threshold. So those are the thresholds that you set where it will automatically shut off if you hit any of those limits. So that's not where you're setting what you're charging at, but it's your limits to how much you want the unit to pull. That way, if you've got a vehicle that plugs in, maybe that's more than 40 amp, it'll trip and it won't charge it and pull more than your breaker can handle. Yeah, and then there's just the Wi-Fi where you can reconfigure the Wi-Fi. So that's the app. So quite a bit of functionality in there. And again, like I said, it's their home app, so they can make updates and things like that. And so far, they've been really responsive to some of that feedback. So hopefully they'll get that fixed and some of that functionality will be there in the future. So now let's get this thing plugged in and test it out on the vehicle, see how it charges, see if we have any warming issues. And I can tell you we've used this multiple times over the past few weeks, and we haven't. The cable has stayed cool to the touch. The charging connector's been cool to the touch. Every time we've plugged it in, it instantly recognizes it if it's on plug and play. Obviously, if it's not on plug and play, you've got to hit something or swipe the card to activate it. And that's what we'll do today. We'll show you just how responsive it is from the app to get it to start charging, and just how responsive it is once you hit that RFID card to get it start charging. Okay, so we've got the unit plugged into the Rivian outside, and it hasn't started charging yet. You can see it's in green, which is the standby mode. So first we want to test it out through the app, and you can just see how quickly it'll get the charge going. We just hit start charging in the app, and the car will recognize it, and you can see it already picked it up and it turned blue. And we'll show you the simultaneous Rivian light indicator outside as that happening. So now it's pulling the charge, and our app is starting to show that it's charging. This battery is filling up with green bars to tell you the charge is going. You've got your start time going, and you've got your duration. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop that real quick just from the app. There you go. So the charge stopped right there. And now we'll try it using one of the RFID cards that came with the unit. So this is something obviously you can keep in your wallet, and say if you and your spouse have the charger and it's set up outside, y'all can use these cards. Especially this is if you're in a more kind of public location and you don't want folks maybe coming up and just using your chargers without asking. You can use something like this. And you just come up there, hit the unit, and there you go. starts charging. And again, pretty quick. And I held the card up there, I think, a little longer than I need to. You can probably just put it up there, move it, and you're good to go. And it's starting to pull the charge. And let's just look at the app to make sure that the juice is going through. And yes, it is. And again, we'll show you the light bar there for the Rivian. And since we've got it going, I'm gonna test out, this is the emergency stop feature. So that should stop the charge. And the app is telling us, yeah, and there it is. It took a few seconds, but it did stop the charge there, and juice is not going to the vehicle anymore. And I think, let's see if we hit that button, if it'll get the charge started again. No, it goes straight to the green, which indicates that it's in standby mode. So then you'd have to reactivate it one way or the other. And then again, if you don't want to use the app to start a charge, or you don't want to use RFID cards to start the charge, you can set it to plug and play. And the one thing I did notice is the first time that you activate the unit and use it, it's going to automatically default to use the RFID card or use the app to start it. Once you've done that one time, then you can use the toggle switch in the app to switch it over to plug and play use if that's the way you want to set it up. Yeah, so what we'll do now is we'll go outside on plug and play. I'll set it to plug and play. That way you can just see the indicator light on the Rivian and see how quickly it responds. And then we'll let it charge for about an hour. Just to show you kind of us doing a test that the cables are heating up or anything like that. But like I said, we've used the unit now for about 2 weeks and have not had any issues with that. But we'll go and do a test for this video as well. All right, so we've got the Nurzviy charger set up on plug and play mode. And we're just going to plug it in. And you'll see how quickly the vehicle responds to it. There you go, you're starting to charge. So no issue there with communication or anything like that. So we'll let it run for a little bit and see if we have any issues with heating, which like I said, I don't expect that we will since we have been using it, but we will check in about an hour. All right, y'all, so we've been charging for about an hour and we like to feel the wall connector to see if there's any issues. Yeah, nothing there. Cable feels good. This is all cool to the touch and it's actually a pretty warm day here today. And we haven't had any issues at the unit itself or at the outlet. So yeah, so that's good to see. And then of course to turn off your charge, you can do it through the app. You can go hit the RFID card on the unit itself, or you can just do it through your vehicle or push the button depending on how your vehicle works. And just pull that connector right out. All right, y'all, so that's the Nurzviy EVHome 40 amp unit with the NEMA 1450 plug. And like I said, we've used it for 2 weeks. We're real happy with it. It's got a ton of functionality. You can use the app, you can use the RFID cards to control access to it. And there's a lot of things you can control through that app as well. And it's got a cable that's thick and relatively flexible, but still easy enough to manage and wrap around. I didn't find that to be so thick to where you wouldn't want to mess around with it. It's got the auto shut off, and although it's not, or not the auto shut off, but the manual shut off if you need to do that. And although it's not ETL or UL safety certified here in the US, which we do like to see, it does have some functionality within the app to where you can set your upper and lower limits on what type of current and stuff it's pulling, just to give you some additional safety features. And the unit is IP65 certified, so it's dust-proof, waterproof. The connector itself is IP55, so not quite as tight on the dust as the box itself, but still dust-proof and waterproof, or water-resistant, I should say. So you can use it for indoor and outdoor use. Right now, Nurzviy is selling this for $299 on their website. This is their new unit. They had an older one. This is kind of the newer design, and I do think this newer design looks better. And it's also sold on Amazon. And Nurzviy was nice enough to send us a coupon, so we'll put that in the comments below, and you can use that link if you want to try it out. So thanks for tuning in, guys. If you've got any questions on this unit, let me know. We'll get them answered. We'll try them out, and we'll put that response in the comments below, or just email us directly. Thanks for tuning in, and hang loose, y'all.